I feel proud of everything ALTA has done over the 25-year period. I've been here for 20, 21 of those years. Um, but I feel pride and I feel some level of sadness because in a society that's moving forward, there would be no need for ALTA. And unfortunately, all these years later, we're expanding, and there's a need for us to continue to expand. Um, our stats are 1 in 4. I looked at some of the UK stats. Some years ago, they were saying 1 in 6, but they're saying 1 in 7. So this is actually a worldwide problem. But nobody has anything like us, I think. Um, One of the things that I've noticed is that with ALTA, you can actually see the whole ethos of ALTA through our new strategic plan. So let me just tell you a few things in the strategic plan. The vision statement says that we are here to effect positive change through improved literacy. And then our mission statement refers to one of the areas that I can talk about, which is material development. And it is to develop effective adult literacy instruction methods and materials for Caribbean people built around life skills. Now, Paul, if I go beyond, you just tell me when to stop it, because with me, everything is always long and excessive. So Paul always has to trim me, especially with material development and so on. Anyway, with regard to the whole idea of the life skills, it's directly linked to one of the aspects that you would have seen maybe in the training material, which is that memory is aided by recency, frequency, and value. And in ALTA, we really try to focus on the value aspect. And you can actually see the value merging with the whole idea of trying to bring about positive change. And if you think about how important life skills are with regard to operating on a daily basis, I read somewhere somebody was talking about intergenerational illiteracy. And what they were really talking about is it passing down through generations. And I know many of you may have had, I had a mother, 2 sons, a father, a son, and many of you may have experienced that you have that in your class. And one of my students was actually one, and you actually see a direct linkage with regard to their prospects. And this, I think, Paul, you put this in the training manual, how poor reading and writing affected my life. And this was a young gentleman. He was a very good mechanic. He got this job in Lachlan and Degans, and he had to fill out reports and so on. And so he couldn't keep the job in the end because he couldn't actually fill out the reports about all the things that were wrong with the car. Anyway, so back to the whole positive change in the life skills. So I'm going to go back to an article I wrote again, which was very long, but some years ago. And one of the things they were talking about, there was a reference in a BBC article, and they talked about poor literacy increasing an early death risk for the elderly. And they talked about the life-changing effect of a person mistaking a prescription that was for 1 week, a dosage for 1 week, and taking that strong dosage and taking it every day. And I always remember in the early days, Paula's lesson on banned flu and flu gone, which was about medicine labels. And that's where you'll see that every lesson, there's some thought in every lesson about how this can make a positive change in a person's life. So we have so many different themes if you think about it. We go from health, cancer prevention, alcoholism, nutrition labels, and then, we also go into things to try to affect people's financial situation. So we had a lesson on national insurance. Now, mine might be a little level 3 focus because that's what, those are some of the lessons that I wrote. Higher purchase, because that's another thing to get the value. We try to make them thematic in terms of what's going on in the country. So at Christmas time, we did a hire purchase lesson because sometimes students, they don't really realize they sign their hire purchase agreement. They're not really sure about, how much they're committing and so on. And one of the more important things that we've been trying to do is looking at these, with the positive change again, the psychological elements. So you have all those lessons like handling anger. You have parenting the teenager. We did Men Matter because, after we did Battered Women, we felt, okay, we had to balance the scales a little bit. And so we were talking about men matter. And that goes into the whole thing about the absentee father, which you have appearing in the Caribbean a lot. And we did lessons with regard to, I think, life saving mechanisms and so on. And that reminds me of a lifeguard I had once. And he said what he used to do is he had to fill out reports. So he had a whole set of reports, and every day he just used to pick sunny day, so-and-so, whatever. And, so he had all these generic ones, and then he'll just decide which aspects of each one that he was going to do whenever he had to do his reports. So hopefully ALTA changed that, and his reports, were much better. Another aspect of the mission statement is to foster a culture of respect and cooperative learning within ALTA. And we're all aware, Paula, am I? Okay, right. So we're all aware of the stigma that goes with not being able to read and write. And so many of our students have all of these negative experiences in the school system. You're labeled dunce, you get licks and so on. And so our whole approach has been to try to, well, you can't completely erase it, but to try to get them to feel differently about themselves and how they are with their reading. And so, for instance, we have a lesson on dyslexia so that people understand, and we focus on all of the geniuses around the world who are dyslexic, because the dyslexic brain is a very, very skilled brain. They're very good at mathematics and engineering, and I remember I had a student who had got a 1 in technical drawing, but he failed everything else. And I looked at this boy and I said, oh gosh, you could have been an architect. If he had had the right teaching at the right time and so on, he could have been an architect. But in the end, he dropped out of class and went to make roti with his family. And I felt so sad because it really, really has such a drastic effect on your life prospects. So in the lessons themselves, back to the whole recency, frequency, and value. We try a lot, in particular, with the frequency, so that if you look at the lesson, you'll see the same when you do a skill like phonics and so on. It's actually, you try to do it over again through the exercises. Now, level 3 teachers will notice, and you can blame me for that. You'll have one exercise, and there's 3 or 4 skills that you're trying to get in there. Because Paula only gave me these 2 pages, and I used to say, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put 3 or 4 skills in the exercise. And then she'd say, people don't understand the instructions, it's too much. So I'd bullet them and then say, okay, could it pass or whatever. But, we were really trying to make sure we focus on the whole frequency aspect, because people remember things when they're done over and over again. And then you can see one of the things that we always try to do, and it's very, in the spelling dictionary in particular, is to try to really understand what is the issue, why people are making the mistakes they do with the spelling and so on. And that's where one of the things that comes in is we try to understand Creole English ourselves better. Now, students come in, I'm from a family that was very heavy into grammar and so on, but in ALTA, and I learned this, there's a structure to Creole grammar. It's not that people aren't able to understand grammar. There's a structure, and that's what people actually listen to, so that's why it becomes more prevalent. But there's a structure, and so that if you understand the structure, you can actually help students. And so you try to teach them, okay, this is Creole English, this is standard English, and so they know the difference, and then they can maybe address in their report writing and so on. And that actually brings me back to some of the other lessons that we did that are practical, the writing lessons and so on, report writing, because the people have to write reports on their jobs and so on. And then we also did how to write a will. People need to do those things as well. Anyway, that was a digression. With the Creole English, we actually created some new concepts, because we looked at, when you're growing up, you learn silent letters, but we have Creole silent letters, right? So for instance, fast, we say fast, but we say fast or fast, and then so you leave out the sound. And then moving on from that, we said, oh, look at that. We have all these Creole homophones now, because based on the way that we speak. And this is not something that you necessarily see anywhere else. But again, we would try to zero in on what the issue was and try to make it easier. One of the other fascinating things for me was people tell you spelling is so difficult and so challenging and so on. But then to try to address this, one of the things that we looked at was, because every rule has an exception. But then what we found is sometimes you can find some kind of pattern in the exception. And so Paula once gave me this rhyming dictionary, and in this rhyming dictionary, it'll give you all the words that rhyme, and then you can actually see all the different ways that you can spell the sounds and so on. And so out of that, make a list and then zero it and zero in, and then we say, okay, when we look at all of these with this particular spelling, you get a pattern here. And so we developed the ULCD dictionary reflects that a lot. So for instance, you have like tank, ank, bank, and so you get the ank pattern, and people, there's a sound to it, and you can use that to try to help yourself to keep remembering and so on. Let me just tell you a little bit, because I'm sure I'm over time now, so I won't tell you everything else I have on my tablet here. Yvonne, one of our first students, because when I came in 5 years in, and Paula and Noreen, I think, right? They already had level 1, level 2, and level 3. By the time I came in 5 years in, they already had all those books. But we had to make our own phonics cards. Anybody here was here in those days? Here now. If you have proper foot writing like me, you're in trouble. And I remember the first time I went to teach, I was teaching with Paula, and I missed it on the training course. So I came in with this 3x2, those are the cards ALTA gives you and you have to write it in. So I didn't see that part, so I cut out my own, and I cut out these huge big cards. And Paula came over to me and she goes, well, where you got that? I said, well, I made it, aren't we supposed to make it? Well, but then we evolved from actually giving people these cards, whatever, to actually printed cards, which is good for foot handwriting, people like me. And then you get your printed rule cards. In the beginning, we didn't have the rule cards. But then we realized, recency, frequency, and value again, so it would be useful to actually have the rule cards, and you just have to write it, all this information. And then in level 3, I think we started to type it up, and then we realized, okay, ALTA can, we can do this. But one of the things Yvonne also said to me, she goes, you weren't there in the days without books, in the days without books. Paula used to come in, and she used to come with anything, all this real-life material and thing and so on. And I can't imagine, knowing they could talk to you about that. Because when I came, as I said, in 5 years, they already had level 1, level 2, and level 3. And then we realized, okay, we needed to do an A program and a B program, because many people had to repeat. And so if you had to repeat, we want to retain your interest. So we said, okay, let's have a same skills, but different material and so on. And then so we did one for level 2 and level 1 first, and then we did one for level 3. And moving on from that, you had the beginner, for the absolute beginner who absolutely knew nothing, and then about spelling and reading and writing and so on. And then moving on from that, now we have this spelling program based on this. Is Lystra here? I didn't see her. Lystra, how the spelling dictionary came about is Lystra was doing this session, there you are, Lystra. Oh God, sorry. Oh gosh, you see the excess always. Thank you. Sorry, Lystra. Overlap. Okay, no, so she'll tell you about that. But anyway, now we have the spelling program and so on. And what you can see is that we really try to zero in on, I'm over the 5 minutes, on what the students need, and then we really try to develop more programs. I'm handing over to Frank now, more programs and so on to achieve these things.